Hello guys, my name is Anna and I'm from Ukraine, and I have decided to vlog daily since the start of this awful Russian invasion. I did not expect it will take me more than a year, but today I'm confident that on my channel through my videos you will be able to witness Ukrainian victory. And counteroffensive is an important part of this victory. If you're new to my channel, check the videos, and if you like them, only if you like them, because we're not Russians and we're not obliged to do the things we don't like, but if you like them, subscribe, because the world needs to know more about Ukraine, and I'm doing my best to answer your questions and to introduce you to some beautiful aspects of Ukrainian culture and history, and to explain some complicated moments of our reality. Counteroffensive is definitely a very popular topic, and only a lazy person will not ask a Ukrainian, what do you think about counteroffensive? How do you feel about counteroffensive? And when will that counteroffensive finally start? So here are some of my personal impressions. You know that I'm not a military expert, but I am an expert Ukrainian, because during all of this war, I'm living in my semi-safe zone, feeling and observing everything around. So many people ask me question, do we feel anxious about the counteroffensive? And the answer is no. Ukrainians don't feel that anxiety because we are constantly anxious. Since the start of this war, we experience lots of losses, lots of dangers, typical air raid alarms. We had more than 1,000. So we react differently as you would, because after a year of full-scale war, you adapt to some things I wish to never adapt. And I'm not saying it's normal, and actually to believe that this is normal is bad, but this is their reality. So this does not change anything for the worse, counteroffensive. It can only change something for the better. So we are not anxious about that. We live in the atmosphere of war every day, and we are prepared. Another question is, when will it start? Once again, I don't think it will begin with an alarm clock or with a horn or something, because this is war and many things are very dynamic. And once again, counteroffensive is not a step, not a jump. This is a process. So I believe we won't have a very particular date. When this war began, and I was an unexperienced citizen of a country at war, I remember reading on Facebook an announcement that Belarus will attack my native city, Lutsk, on the 11th of March at 9 p.m. And I remember myself on the 11th of March sitting on my bed in my bedroom waiting for 9 p.m. and the attack of Belarus troops. At 9 p.m. and 5 minutes, I was already relaxed because they did not attack us. Now I understand, things like counteroffensive, attack, or even a missile, they don't happen in a moment. Even before the missile hits, after it was targeted, it takes some minutes. So it was definitely stupid for me to wait for Belarus troops to arrive at 9 p.m. to the central square of my city. Something similar can be applied to the idea of counteroffensive. It will not be a particular hour of a particular day. Another thing is, I see counteroffensive as a number of battles, a number of steps, and a number of actions. So it will take long. Also, I share the opinion of many of our ministers, foreign, defense, and so on, that it maybe we will need a couple of counteroffensives, because this is a serious war. Many territories are occupied by Russian orcs. They're coming from different directions, and this is not just a targeted operation somewhere in the mountain. These are huge territories that need to be cleaned from Russian troops, so perhaps it's more logical to understand that it's not going to be a day or a week after which we will have total victory. Also, I have a habit to listen to Vlad Wexler and his smart thoughts before I go to bed. I have troubles falling asleep, and I like listening to some philosophical thoughts. They make me calm, even if he's talking about war. I've told him, and he told me that there are better things to listen before you go to bed. But anyway, in one of these beautiful videos, he says, he speaks about various operations that already happen on the territory of Russia and how Russians react to that. explosions, fires, and other stuff, and that Russian society is not prepared to that, and he questions, is Ukrainian armed forces, for example, ready to continue doing things like that, because this can seriously influence the war. And I decided to think more on this idea, and I thought that a non-classical version of counteroffensive could also be good. So there is one counteroffensive happening on the battlefields with tanks, HIMARS, and all the things we watched in the movies, but with real people dying. And another, more like spy style, like can happen on the territory of Russia. And I know that Russians are covered, honestly. That's why they have Putin as president for almost 30 years. That's why they don't protest. That's why they let their population reach this point, reach this bottom in which they are now. So they, and I've read in articles, in publics, that in some places people draw red crosses. We had lots of them at the beginning of this war on our streets, and they were meant for the planes, because they believe that bombers can fly about, jets can fly about the regions, and they will bomb some important places. So they were leaving this signs, collaborators, Russian spies, and there were many of them before the start of the war, and we were advised to look for this drawings, to destroy them, especially if they are on the tops of the buildings and so on. And people were working like crazy to erase them, to hide them, to draw them. I remember seeing some even in my city. It was at the very beginning of war. And now similar crosses started appearing in Russia, and they are terrified. They don't know what to do. They are afraid their cities will be bombed. You see how they react if something minor happens, for example, an explosion on their oil depot. They don't know what to do. They are very aggressive in their comments to Putin. And I think this is a very good thing, like not to kill Russians, because Ukrainians are good. They don't kill Russians on Russian territory. They only kill Russians on Ukrainian territory. But to spread fear, to spread panic, and maybe a part of this counteroffensive could take place actually on Russian territory by various drones and explosions in their military storages, in their oil depots, by drawing some things that make Russians feel terrified, by shaking their society from inside. And it's pretty easy, because once again, I have to repeat it, Russians are cowards. Russians are cowards. Maybe if you think about these associations, many people think that Russians are drinking a lot. But another association, maybe even more important, is that they also are afraid of very many things. That's why they live these miserable lives. Ukrainians are brave. Between misery and death, we choose death and freedom, or better, life and freedom. And Russians will choose life in misery. And that's why I think one of these parts of counteroffensive could have taken part on the territory of Russia. So that's how I see it. And we have to be patient. We have to be very effective. And I do understand that this counteroffensive, Ukrainian counteroffensive, is going to be very important. And it has to be successful, because if it's like 50-50 or something like that, people inside Ukraine are very much like concentrated on that, and people outside Ukraine are getting tired, and I'm very much afraid of that. And I'm very much afraid of the moment when people like Macron will start persuading the rest of political leaders and Ukrainians that we have to negotiate. You cannot negotiate with mass killers. You cannot negotiate with people who came to kill you. They did not come to talk to us. They did not come to discuss something. They came to kill us. I remember the very first morning of this war, When I've received a message, it started, and in 20 minutes I heard explosion in my city 80 kilometers from the border with European Union. So this counteroffensive is important not only for Ukraine, but for the rest of the world. Please remind it to those who doubt. Thank you for buying me coffees. Thank you for becoming my patrons. This gives strength, inspiration, and helps our work on YouTube. And I extremely value our community. Also, check our beautiful t-shirts and hoodies and stickers and whatever you like in our shop, because as my beautiful friends say, they are conversation starters. So thank you so much for being with us, and Slava Ukraini!